Welcome to the Game Week 28 video. So tomorrow there are 5 fixtures and the first one is Villa vs Everton. Now Villa will be very disappointed following the 2-1 defeat to Stoke. Conceding 2 goals pretty much, at the start of the second half was a big blow for them. 2 goals for Arnautovic with an assist for Barclays who won the penalty, and for Shaqiri as well. And what was very disappointing was, for Villa's point of view, is they actually played quite well. They were they were quite sound defensively, you would say, until they gave the penalty away, and from there everything went downhill. Conceding the second goal, and they got themselves a bit of a lifeline with the Bakuna goal, but to be honest, it was a bit too late, and no one could really say Villa are going to score 2 goals in that game. So, Villa do look like the team that will probably go down. On the other hand, Everton, haven't played this week, and they obviously lost the game against West Brom. The 1-0 away, Jonas Olsen's header, which assisted Rondon. So, in terms of the Premier League, they're coming back from a defeat, but obviously they've progressed in the Cup. Where do I see this game going? I think it's got Everton winning it, but it's that time of the season again where teams at the bottom start performing and need to get a result. So it would not surprise me at all if Villa start performing here and maybe got a win. But I think it all rests with the defensive performance. If Villa keep a clean sheet, they'll give themselves a very good platform to go and win the game. And I think that's about it. So second game tomorrow is Bournemouth vs Southampton, and Bournemouth come from a very good 0-0 draw to Watford. When you consider a game which I think both of them had chances, but it ended up 0-0 and profited a lot of the defenders. Especially, you look at Smith, you look at Daniels, you look at Francis, who I believe got the free bonus. They definitely benefited from the clean sheets, because a lot of these defenders are actually in quite a lot of people's teams purely down to value. Southampton, on the other hand, I think being 1-0 ahead with a very good Shay-Long goal. It showed a bit naivety, I think, because it's weird because obviously they've gone 6 games unbeaten and hadn't conceded for a while. But I think they almost started defending very deep, which was really weird. It gave Chelsea that chance, and it's probably the reason as to why the first goal happened. When Fabregas crossed it, if the defense is very high, then the keeper can somewhat, he wouldn't have to worry so much about worrying about other players probably getting a touch on the ball. Whereas if it's much deeper, the keeper really has to react really late, and it's a bit of a howler. But at the same time, you can't really blame him because he's been very good for the last 6 games. And then the second goal, obviously, a set piece, and Southampton, it was always going to happen. They're always going to end up losing a game, but probably not a game they should have lost, to be honest. But this game, both teams at the moment look very uncomfortable near mid-table positions. It can go either way. Wouldn't surprise me if this ended as a 0-0, and obviously defenders from both sides could profit from this. Now Leicester and West Brom, both of these teams won, and Leicester obviously won with a very late goal from Majoha with Vardy assist, who got one of the most minute touches on Brighton's cross. And I think this is somewhat controversial, but I mean, obviously Mahrez has been a big player. This fantasy Premier League season, he's been massive, and he still will be. And I just think with the penalty gone now away from him, I won't be surprised if his value started declining, and especially if he doesn't get the points. But there's no doubt Leicester start performing better when they put Mahrez in the middle. So if Ranieri obviously has a counter injury, he might want to consider putting Mahrez in the middle and putting someone else on the flank, and that might all of a sudden just change the complexion in terms of what Mahrez can offer to people in fantasy, because there's no doubt a player in the middle, he's most likely going to get the ball more times than a player on the width generally. Whereas West Brom raised to a 3-0 lead, and to be honest, really didn't deserve to win the game, if I'm honest, because for me they pretty much conceded 2 penalties which weren't given. So, like I said, West Brom's defence is not really something you can really Leicester laurels with. But offensively, the three players that stood out for me were Rondon, Berino, and Sessegnon. I know they didn't get all the points. Obviously, other players like Brunt got the points and Dawson with the set piece, but these three players for sure looked to have rejuvenated West Brom from an attacking point of view. Where do I see this game going? I still think this is a Leicester win on it. But West Brom have picked a very free, 6 points now. Following the Everton away win, and those are 6 massive points. So they won't go to this game very pressurised, and that can go both ways. Either they were relaxed too much and Leicester will just maul them over, or West Brom might play with no stress, and sometimes that can be a good thing as well. So with Berahino back, he's a player recommended as well. Let's see what West Brom to offer, but I'd definitely put Leicester firmly as favourites. Norwich and Chelsea. Norwich, played really well away to Leicester and probably should have scored. Jerome's header was a pretty much clear-cut chance, and Redmond's shot was not too far from the post as well. So Norwich could have easily have won. The fair result would have been a draw of the game, but to lose the game is just summarising the season for me. They've got into positions where they should be getting points and they haven't. And Chelsea, on the other hand, have been very good in the Premier League under Hiddink. They're unbeaten. They did get a few draws, but it's all about building momentum. That's the key thing. Building momentum, even if it's draws, you're still unbeaten. And they're doing well now. I think Chelsea, if they continue what they're doing, they can target, a Europa League position. It wouldn't be out of reach, but they'll have to go on a good run. But similar to the run that which they've been on under Hiddink, then I don't see why it's not possible. In terms of certain players, I mean, I would look at particularly Chelsea. You've seen Costa, Willian, Fabregas. Those players are taking, but all of a sudden Hazard is not that much of a bad choice anymore. So I'll look at Hazard. A lot of the chances that Chelsea got, Hazard was in the middle. He was in the box, and for instance, the Fabregas goal, that was actually aimed for Hazard. So potential points there. Now Sunderland and Palace, Palace and both these teams lost, and Sunderland, a lot of chances fell to Defoe, but most times he was offside. So I think that's something they need to work on. Although the linesman was quite harsh for quite a few of them, I thought. And the goal they conceded was pretty much, self-inflicted, with Van Aanholt not really clearing the ball out. But I still think Sunderland do have, things going for them offensively. I think they could have got a few goals from Rodwell as well. So I see Sunderland scoring here, and I think Palace, on the other hand, do have goals in them, but I see them shipping goals away. So I think this game has goals written on it, and I think with Palace, obviously, Wickham getting 2 goals were massive. Whether Adebayo still be the first team, it's wait to be seen, because I think Adebayo was like, if Adebayo's on song, then he's a very useful player for anyone. But on his day when he's not on it, it's just you have to carry him, which I think Alan Pardew was right to take him off at half time, and obviously the second half performance was much better for Palace. But Lassie seems to be the one player that I would actually add on now. He's come back from injury, he looks solid, and he looks like he's very much involved in what Palace do. Could have easily got an assist for a penalty. Some very good crosses in the box. So he's the player that I'll really promote. I think this is a big game. I think if Sunderland win, I think that really says to Palace, you are in a relegation fight. Whereas if Palace win, I think it just eases pressure for Alan Pardew, but Sunderland do have to worry. Now, in terms of the Wednesday fixtures, Arsenal and Swansea. And Arsenal come from a very bad defeat at Old Trafford. Defensively, very naive. Crosses coming in. Gabriel not able to defend appropriately in the first 2 goals, at least. And the third goal is a bit like he takes a major deflection of Koscielny. So, whereas on the other hand, Swansea 1-0 up, away to Spurs, and I know Spurs are very confident at the moment, but really should be getting something in that game, because their position is not exactly great, and even a point would have been a good result for them. But for them to end up with 0, it's definitely very disappointing. Um, Obviously, Welbeck has now come in the game at 7.3, got a goal and assist in the last game. He's someone you've got to look at. I mentioned Giroud might not even start, which is the reason why I kicked him out of my team last week. And yeah, you have to look at definitely Welbeck. I think he's for value, he's definitely worth it. In terms of Swansea, Palocci, the striker, which some of you guys may be aware of from Football Manager, he's the main centre forward. Gomez is on the bench, and he got his goal against Spurs. So he's someone you could look at. Maybe, I don't know. I do think look, if Arsenal are title challengers, they have to win this game. There's no way deferring this. So it looks like Arsenal might be very insistent on trying to keep a clean sheet. So it might not be the ideal game to get a Swansea offensive player. But yeah, I think I want to go for an Arsenal win, and a lot of people have got Oz out of the team, and now getting him back in. He's valued at 9.9. For me, he's been one of the star players in the game. We've got a goal and assist and 2 bonus. You have to look at Mesut Ozil and Sanchez. I think everyone just waiting for him to get back in his form, because when he does, his points will fly. Stoke and Newcastle, obviously Stoke, won the game 2-1 against Villa, 2 goals for Arnautovic, and obviously a player we mentioned before. And Shaqiri obviously got an assist, and like the BPS system does favour Shaqiri in a weird way, so he managed to get his 2 bonus points. And this is a great 2 games in a row which Stoke can use to the benefit to really propel themselves higher in the table. Newcastle, on the other hand, come back, and obviously haven't played last week, but I think this is a big game for them as well. They've seen teams around them, not really profit too much from the extra game. So this will be a great place for me to, even if Newcastle did get a point, I think it will be a very good result. But Newcastle's form in general way is pretty bad, so I see this being a Stoke win. West Ham and Spurs. What is there to say about West Ham? Noble had a great shot at the start of the game. Antonio with his left foot. Apparently something he's been practicing on the training ground. And, Payet was the player I've been mentioning along with Antonio. And I still think Payet is the player to be looking at because of his set piece. But in terms of value, Antonio's right up there. So, for 11 points last week, considering his value is up about 5.5, he's got to be worth considering your team if you're looking for a midfielder around that price range. Collins at 4.3 is also a good shout, but Spurs on the other hand look like a team that will score goals, so maybe not for this game week. Like I said, Spurs, Harry Kane is fine, he's playing with a broken nose. Eriksen for me was a big player in that game against Swansea, even though he didn't get any points. And then you have players like Charlie, for instance, who always seems to be getting goals. And yeah, so the same players as mentioned before for Spurs. Spurs also, there's one thing to add. In a few weeks' time, in 2 game weeks' time actually, so game week 30, a lot of teams won't be playing. However, Spurs are playing, throughout this entire period. So, kind of investing in Spurs players won't be a bad decision. And similarly with all the other teams this week, do check if the players you're getting in do have a fixture on game week 30, because you don't want to end up with a team where you can't even put a first 11 and have to really execute transfers and take minus points. Now, Liverpool-Man City obviously is just a repeat of the Carling Cup final, which went to penalties. I call it Carling Cup, but yeah, you can call it League Cup. And Liverpool, Sturridge, Coutinho, those are the players for me that really stand out. Those will be the only players for me that really stand out. And obviously you got Firmino from before. Man City, on the other hand, they've slowly picking up their form. But look at Silva, you look at Sterling, you look at Aguero. Without De Bruyne at the moment, those 3 guys for me look like really heavily involved in what they do offensively. And Yaya, obviously, he's a bit of a risk, but I think, especially later on in games, the way Pellegrini uses him, he's worth a risk as well. Where do I see this game? I think really Man City were the better team against Liverpool, to be frank. Should have got a penalty, had better chances, and I think they've got enough for them to really do the job here at Anfield. Liverpool might be galvanised from losing and obviously want to get revenge, so potential for a draw, maybe even a win. But I'm going to go slightly towards for a Man City win. And lastly, Man United and Watford. Man United, a young team, but at the end of the day, it's all about quality. Quality doesn't have an age, so they did the job against Arsenal. Arsenal presenting them with chances, and Rashford took them, perfectly fine. So I valued at 4.5. He is going to be playing, so yeah, definitely worth looking at. If you are looking, if you've got a certain amount of funds available in strike, and obviously there are other strikers that I would prefer, but at 4.5, he's up there. Lingard, a player I've got, I think it's valued at 4.3 now. Got an assist, definitely worth considering. And then you have these other players around, which we mentioned. We discussed Martial. I don't think he's ready yet, but I wouldn't invest that much around Man United's defence, if I'm honest, because I think a lot of these players might not be in the first team in a few weeks' time. So it's better to cut your finances there. And lastly, Watford, a very good draw against Bournemouth. Didn't lose a game, and for me, they just seem to be chipping away with some points. But I can see them causing Man United problems. They did have chances against Bournemouth. Maybe not the most clear-cut chances, but they had chances. So where do I see this game going? I think Man United have got the emphasis. But this is, I think, the common thing with Man United. They've got some decent results this season, but then they haven't really followed it up. So I see them dropping points. But if Man United go here and do win, I would say, yeah, okay, they won 2 games in a row, and maybe there's a smallest of chances of them maybe having a chance of finishing in the top 4. So that's my analysis of the midweek fixtures, and good luck for this game week.